Let's start off with these golden shares, as they're called. Of course, they expire in March. What does this mean for government going forward?
Well, effectively means government at the moment has maybe, let's say, overrepresentation at board level. It has more than it would have as a regular shareholder in the company, which means it has the ability to provide more input into Telkom's operations activities. And it can exercise that power to push its agenda through if it so wishes.
Less power after March, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so effectively, yeah, they will have less decision-making ability at board level after March.
Telkom is currently headed up by Jeffrey Hedberg, acting CEO at this point in time. The Department of Communications wants to have a permanent leader in place before the shares expire in March. Do you think this is likely to happen in 3 months' time?
If the government wishes, I suppose it may. Depends to be seen. Ruben September's contract expired in November, although obviously he left earlier than that. And Jeffrey has been acting in that capacity as the CEO at group level. So any time from November last year, from now on, that can take place. It's a matter of putting the candidates forward and voting for them by the board of Telkom Group.
Do you think that government is pro-Hedberg, or do you think that another candidate might be considered?
I would expect that probably Jeffrey Hedberg is not government's choice number one. He's not a South African. He's an American. He's not a BEE candidate. There are other candidates around, such as Pinky, for instance. She's been rumored to be the person to head up Telkom Group. What happens with Jeffrey? It could be that the roles reverse and Jeffrey Hedberg assumes leadership of Telkom South Africa per se, because he does have both fixed line and mobile market experience, and could be possibly a well-suited person to head up Telkom Group's largest operation, that is the South African operation. But ultimately, I suppose we also need to see what Jeffrey achieves in the next month or two in terms of his ability to lead group to a more prosperous, I suppose, future than Telkom has been achieving of late.
And is the investor community confident that Mr. Hedberg could achieve, positive results and sustainable results for Telkom going forward?
I think probably as comfortable maybe as the investor community can get. He did do quite a bit of good work at Cell C, managed to place Cell C on the growth path again. He spent a relatively short time in Nigeria at the Multilinks operations, less than 6 months, I think, and his main contribution to that was to enforce a decision to effectively wind down part of that operation, namely the mobile part, the residential part, and keep the fixed line corporate data side, which is what Telkom does best in South Africa, for instance. So from that perspective, very good decision, I suppose. But what happens, we'll see.
It's interesting when you look at the top management at Telkom. A lot of them are still in acting positions. The management scenarios and sagas that have been playing out with Telkom, it's not new. It's been for many years now. For Telkom to succeed, one would then assume that there needs to be sustainable and stable management put in place. How is that read by the investor community? Do you think that we could have news on that front soon?
Oh, hopefully, once the CEO position is finalized, we have a permanent person in place that hopefully stays there for the full tenure and maybe longer term of office. Then all the other positions will start to be filled in with permanent placements as well. And then obviously then it's a question of executing a strategy, whatever the new strategy may be once it's finalized. But there are a number of aspects where Telkom is still a very strong competitor in the South African market, and can assume probably a leadership position, leadership from the perspective of being probably a leader in terms of its ability to deliver services and compete in the market.
We're a few months into the launch of ATAR, of course, its mobile offering. Do you think it is going to be successful in South Africa?
It's a difficult market to come into as a mobile operator. It's a very competitive market with 3 other strong operators, particularly Vodacom and MTN, and Cell C improving its performance. It's a very penetrated market. It's a very mature market. So for a new operator to come in, yes, we can probably try and take a bet on synergies derived out of operating fixed and mobile networks by the same company, by Telkom namely. But our view is that it's not going to be, certainly, I think, one of the top 2, maybe even 3 players in the market. Question is it going to survive over the medium to long term? It probably will survive, but I think the jury's still out as to what what sort of performance we can be looking at and how successful it will be.
Another challenge that Telkom faces this year is local loop unbundling, and ICASA is very much on the front foot in changing that and ensuring that other providers can use its copper networks as well. Your view on this, do you think that Telkom is going to ensure that it's delayed? Because I know that the Department of Communications is talking about a deadline in November this year.
Well, yeah, I think from our perspective, Telkom is going to be probably more cooperative than not. It has tried the other route in the past, hasn't always held it in good stead. I think Telkom realizes that this is inevitable, and effectively its ability to compete lies in its ability to achieve greater performance levels rather than trying to hamper what regulatory developments are going to take place at any rate. Telkom has known about it for a number of years now, and I think it's probably well prepared to start unbundling the local loop from a technical perspective, and it is going to take place, and I think it's a fact by now.
Do you think it can happen by November this year?
I think it can happen by November this year. We've got a full year ahead of us to work on that.
Fantastic. What should investors do next with Telkom? Many people have been staying away from the stock, but it's looking relatively attractive from a valuation perspective.
Yeah, I think, again, depending on what sort of strategy Telkom pursues, I think once we've got the top management finalised and in place, and a couple of aspects, and Telkom should really focus on defending the fixed line corporate market. That's where the big money is, and that's where Telkom still has a very strong position, also on the wholesale market in providing national transmission and international transmission of effective voice and data traffic. So probably look, Telkom will be under pressure from competitors, and that's a fact of life in South Africa as the environment becomes more competitive. But I think probably a good stock to certainly have a look at.
Would you be buying Telkom?
Not likely maybe to go down much further.
Would you be buying Telkom, Dobek?
I've had Telkom before and sold it the wrong time.
Have you been burned? Okay, really a lot hinges on the strategy that they're going to put forward. But what about the telecom sector as a whole? Relatively bullish about the prospects in South Africa? Well,
again, it's a mature market, so I don't think we can expect great growth. We see operators such as Neotel having possibly problems looking at retrenching some of the staff. So there's certainly growth, but it's relatively moderate growth, and looking at new service deliveries based around data centers and management of data networks for the corporates, and cloud computing. It's another big term.